Hey guys, so today I am back with another cool build, and this is going to be Righteous Fire Minions. Well, just really a fancy term for saying Minion Instability and Infernal Legion. But yes, we are going to be using Minion Instability and Infernal Legion to do damage to enemies using Skeletal Brutes. Now, this is by no means a efficient minion build. I mean, none of my builds are really ever that efficient, but this is really just trying to make it so that we can get something as close to Righteous Fire as possible in Path of Exile. And other than other builds like using Corpse Weight or things like that, which are using poison, there's nothing really using fire or burning damage, ignite damage to do so. And this really is, in that sense, the closest thing to it. Now, this is a work in progress still. This is not by any means the finalized build guide, but I wanted to document the process of making this build and trying to get it to work and trying to get it to scale to try and beat as much content as possible in the game. Now, at the moment, this build is able to do tier 15, tier 16 maps just fine. The bosses on those maps are doable. It's not like really fast, but the minions do about, good enough damage to kill them in 2 bursts of the minion instability, which is pretty decent right now. I'm trying to make it so that they kill it in 1 burst, but we'll see if that happens. At the moment, it really is just a proof of concept and just a fun little build that I had thought of and cooked up, and hopefully you guys can help me continue to refine this as well down in the comment section below. But taking a look at our character, we are currently a level 90 Infernalist with 2.6k life, 7k energy shield, 967 mana, 442 spirit, and we are capped out on our resist except for chaos, which is at 0 right now. Maybe down the line we'll cap it out or get it up higher, but at the moment I don't really see the need to. I'm barely ever feeling like I'm in danger, so there's that. Now, in terms of survivability, 7k energy shield, I think for a minion build is actually pretty decent. I used to have it at like 8.9k, but I just don't think that's really necessary. I never felt really like I was in danger. So I bumped it down a little bit to increase the amount of damage that we're doing. So yeah, because this build, the main problem really is damage, because our damage is limited by how much health our skeletal brutes have. Now, currently our skeletal brutes have 62k maximum life, and our burning damage from Infernal Legion and Minion Instability all come from this number right here. So what we're trying to do is maximize the amount of life that we have on our minions, but also maximize the amount of damage that they do, because actually at the end of the day, minion damage will also increase the amount of damage the burning and the explosions from Minion Instability does. So that's kind of what we're doing with our build right now. And while we're here, let's go over the gems, right? So, of course, Skeletal Brute, I have it at 4 linked right now because I don't want to put in Infernal Legion, because if I do that, the minions are going to keep on dying, exploding, and making a bunch of noise in the background. So, we're not going to do that. We're just going to keep it off for now and keep it as a 4 link. But just know that this goes into here. So, we have Feeding Frenzy, which as I mentioned, the more damage our minions do, the more burning damage, and the more damage the explosion from Minion Instability does. We have Last Gasp, and this is kind of really the technology that we use to keep our minions alive. Because if you look at this, when they blow up, right, they stay alive and the revive timer keeps going. So basically there's no downtime in their, I guess, alive time, right? There's a slight downtime, like half a second, but that's something that we have to deal with. You can kind of deal with it a little bit with this unique right here, the Necro Mantle. It makes it so that you lose a lot of survivability, right? But you basically have a non-existent respawn timer when they die. So look at this, take a look at the time. Goes to 0, they immediately respawn, right? So if you have the Necro Mantle, this will actually make it so that there's basically no delay in their respawn and death timing. But as a result, you see our survivability has taken a huge hit. So I choose to just deal with that half a second of respawn timer instead of using Necro Mantle. There's also a ring that gives us, I think, like up to 15% faster revives on our minions, which I don't know if that one of those rings is enough, but maybe you guys can try it out. The problem is that every time your minion dies, you take 300 physical damage, And that's a lot of damage when we have 9 brutes dying at the same time. So yeah, let's take off this minion instability thing, the Infernal Legion thing again, because our minions are going to keep exploding. But yeah, there is some tech to go and make it so that your minions will, revive faster. But personally, I don't really see much of a need for it. The clear is good enough right now as it is, and this gives us more survivability, which is nice. But you can do that if you can get more survivability elsewhere and still keep the same amount of damage. Now, that's the gems for our skeletal brutes. Again, try to maximize the HP and try to maximize the amount of brutes that we have. Now, the one thing that I will mention is that it doesn't matter whether you have 1 brute or 9 brutes when it comes to the amount of damage that they do when they're doing their burns. But the explosions from minion instability do scale with the amount of characters or the amount of summons you have, because obviously more explosions equals more damage. So that's why we still try to maximize the amount of minions that we have, even though the burns don't stack. That way we have more explosions, because that really is where the bulk of our burst damage is. Whenever we go up against a rare or a boss monster, you really do want those explosions, because if not, they just don't do that much damage. Also, when it comes to AoE and clear, right? More minions equals more AoE, more area of effect. They cover a larger area, so that will help with our clear as well. So even though it doesn't increase our damage directly like that, it still increases the damage. Now, for the other gems, we have our Hound, of course. This really is just a kind of like, something to share damage with us, because we do share 20% of the damage that we take with this. But also, we have it here for fire exposure and a little bit of Culling Strike, right? So fire exposure, this minion burns, and as a result, applies fire damage. And as a result, we also are able to apply fire exposure with it, which will make our other burn damage do more damage in general. We also have flammability. I used to have this on a blasphemy setup, but I found that the clear wasn't a problem, and as I mentioned before, single target is more of an issue, so that's why blasphemy is not as good as just self-casting it on a boss monster. That's why we have flammability right here. We have heightened curse, persistence, and inspiration. Now, before we go over Pain Offering, I'll have a section by itself. We'll skip over and go into Contagion. I tried using Contagion to help with clear, because Contagion does carry the burn damage and carries the ailments, right? But from my findings, it really doesn't help all that much. Every now and then I'll throw it in there just to be like, oh, hey, I'm doing a little bit more, right? But it really doesn't help, so you can feel free to not run this. But for this, I have Swift Affliction, Chaotic Freeze, Considered Casting, and Drain Ailments just to do more damage, because we always have burns on our enemies, so this will consume the ailments and do more damage. We have Skeletal Warriors as well, on top of our weapon having Skeletal Warriors, but we'll go into that after that when we go over Pain Offering. And then we also have Lightning Warp. This is really there to apply Shocked Ground. As I mentioned, single target damage is an issue. So we combine Ball Lightning with Lightning Warp to create Shocked Ground to make it so that our enemies are taking more damage, right? So we have Overcharge and Stormfire on this because it's always Shock. And then we have Arcane Tempo on our Ball Lightning to have it come out faster. And for our Spirit Gem, we are really only just using Grim Feast to help us with our survivability. Everything else we do want to keep with our trying to maximize the number of skeletal brutes that we have. I am still working on my Spirit. I don't have a ton. Well, I mean, I have a good amount, but there's still areas where I can grow more in Spirit, which will, again, in turn, improve our single target damage, because the explosions from Minion Instability are our main source of single target damage. One thing to also note is that the auto attacks of our minions are also a good source of damage, even though this is mostly a burn build, right? The auto attacks are nothing to sneeze at, because we do have a bunch of minion damage nodes. And when it comes to the calculation of damage, we actually do more damage with minion damage nodes compared to increases in life. So let's say you go 10% increased life versus 10% increased damage. The increased damage will actually do more damage compared to the increased life. Well, not only because they do more auto attack damage, but also because the burns and the explosions will also do more damage. So there's that. And in that same idea, Meat Shield actually is not very good. Even though it increases our maximum life, it makes us deal less damage. So that will also apply to the burns and the explosions. That's why you don't want that there. So there's that. Now let's go into Pain Offering. And this is something I'm kind of proud of. I don't know if other people have come up with this tech. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't, but let's put back on our Infernal Legion first, because there's a reason why we run skeletal minions, 2 of them, on top of having skeletal minions from our Rattling Scepter. So something that we have here is Pain Offering. This makes us so our minions do more damage and also have increased attack speed and cast speed, right? Now, the reason why we have our skeletal warriors here on top of our skeletal warriors from our weapon is because this allows us to keep 100% uptime on our Pain Offering. So let's take out the skeletal warriors, for example, right? What we want to do is we always want to be using our Pain Offering as our other minions, our brutes, are respawning. Because if we don't do that, we have a chance of hitting those brutes up in the air. As you can see here, I'm going to throw out Pain Offering. You see, 2 of our brutes just got skewered. You never want that, right? So that's why there's a little bit of a skill kind of timing thing when it comes to using Pain Offering in this build. Now, what ends up happening is if you only have 1 set of skeletal minions, you won't be able to keep 100% uptime on them. So I can use it right here to skewer them as the other ones are respawning, because you can't actually skewer them when they're respawning. And then they're going to die, these guys are going to die, and then you are going to be forced to skewer or have a chance to skewer your skeletal brutes right now. Because the other minions spawned at the same time, so you can't, like, you know, you can't wait until when these brutes are respawning and guarantee your skeletal warriors being skewered. Now, this is why we have 4 minions right here for the skeletal warriors. That way, when they die, right, they die and they respawn, we skewer 2 skeletal warriors, and now we still have 2 available. So basically, this means that the next time they die, we have another 2 to skewer. So in this sense, you can keep 100% uptime on this. That way, when you're doing something like a ritual, or you're doing like a breach, or maybe you're doing like, you know, just fighting bosses, right? You can keep the uptime on your Pain Offering to make sure your minions are doing as much damage as possible with 100% uptime. And unfortunately, persistence doesn't allow you to keep the uptime 100% with 2 minions. So this is why we have 4 total skeletal warriors, and we do end up, you know, unfortunately making it so that we have 1 less brute, but that's fine. That's just my spirit, right? If I get like 10, 15 more spirit or something like that, we'll be able to get another brute. But that is kind of the setup and the way that we use Pain Offering to upkeep our damage and maximize our damage. And I don't know if anybody has had this tech out there before, but it's what I do. I don't have any gems linked on my skeletal warriors because they're really just there for that. They do some damage. It's not like they don't do any damage, right? Their basic attack does do damage, but it's not their main purpose. Now, the gems that we use for our Pain Offering are Ablation, Dance Macabre, and Magnified Effect to make it so that the area of effect is larger. I'm not like super experienced with minions, so maybe I'm missing out some gems for these. Let me know in the comment section if you have any suggestions for things I need to add or should add to these gems. But yeah, that's what we have right now. So we're going to take that off again so our minions don't keep exploding and making a bunch of noise. And that's our gem setup. Now for our tree, we of course are Infernalist, and we are going down this path to get the reserve for our energy shield, but also for our spirit. And then we also went the Loyal Hellhound. Now the rest of the tree, we basically try to maximize on the amount of damage that our minions do and the amount of life that they have. So we basically grab all those nodes around this area. We also grab this node right here to increase movement speed because minions move pretty slow in my opinion. So we grabbed this for that. We also want to grab all the nodes around here that have minions revive 15% fast, or minions revive faster. So we have this node right here. And we have like another node like somewhere over here somewhere or something like that. I think it's like over here, right? Yeah, minions revive 25% faster. We want all those minions revive faster nodes because that is able to let us maximize on the uptime of our minions when they're, you know, constantly dying. The other thing to note is that with that, we want to be a witch, of course. You don't want to be playing this not as a witch, unless, of course, you're using that chest armor, because we're missing out on this node and missing out on quite a few minion, like all this minion damage and minion life and stuff, right? You want to be playing a witch to maximize the amount of damage and the amount of time that our minions are up. Now, you will notice that I'm not using any weapon swaps on this tree, and that's because of Last Gasp. Last Gasp works very, very wonkily, awkwardly with weapon swaps. When you swap your weapon and your minion's like dead because of Last Gasp and still alive, it messes things up. It like sometimes they revive, sometimes they don't revive. So unless they fix those bugs, we actually can't use any weapon swaps to, like, for example, put on our curses, right? Being able to use our weapon swap would help us a lot with our tree efficiency, but unfortunately we can't do that because of the bugs in the game right now. So we just use one main hand as a result. But that's our tree right now. Like I said, I used to have some stuff here for more ES, but we did end up taking that out because our I just didn't see a need to have that much survivability. So that's kind of why we've taken our choices for our tree. Now for our jewels, I would say that mostly you want to have minion damage and you want to have minion cast and attack speed. If you want to get ES on your jewels, that's also possible. That's something that will help out with survivability, but definitely not required. It also makes the jewels cost a lot more. So that's why I've chosen to only go with damage and attack speed, cast speed on our jewels. I do still have some of these jewels right here too. Minion maximum life and minion area effect just help out with our clear. But honestly, I think I'm going to probably convert these over to these other jewels as well, cast speed, attack speed, and minion damage, just because I don't think our clear is really an issue, and the area effect really doesn't improve that much, in my opinion. I've put in area effect stuff, and it just doesn't seem to improve it that much, so I might take these out to add more damage. And something that you'll notice is that we usually only go for two effects, right? Minion damage, minion cast and attack speed, minion health, minion area effect. So as a result, this is actually a setup that works really well with Adorned, but Adorned is really expensive, so I don't have one. So that's why we kind of go here. But if you wanted to put a lot of investment into this, you can definitely go Adorned. That'll increase your damage by a ton. And then we also have a Megalomaniac Diamond right here that has 2-pronged attack. I also have Immortal Thirst on it, which gives me a little bit more energy shield over here. It's, you know, ideally you want to have 2 minion effects on here if you can. Maybe like, let's say 2-pronged attack and also like Sturdy Ally or Resourceful Ally or something like that. But those are a little bit more expensive. I think there was only one on the market when I saw it. So that's why we just have one for Immortal Thirst, or 2-pronged attack and Immortal Thirst, because Immortal Thirst is still useful, right? Gives us more energy shield, which is nice. But 2-pronged attack gives 25 increased damage. And then I also have an Anoint on Resourceful Ally to do more damage as well. So that's what we have for our jewel setup right now. And that'll also be in the POV that I'm going to link in the description below. But that's the tree. Now, for our current plans for tree, I think we're going to go up here and grab this last minion damage node. And when I have enough, I guess, spirit, maybe we'll go down here as well to grab a little bit more health. But like I said, I just never found an issue with survivability, so we might not even want to grab that. So we'll see. There's still things to get and, you know, more optimizations to be done on the tree. Now, for our equipment, we have, of course, a Rattling Scepter. For our Rattling Scepter, you really want to have the following. Of course, 4 minion levels. You want to have minions' life be as high as possible, so minions have 45 increased maximum life. And then I also have allies in your presence deal increased damage. Those are all things that are important for this. Of course, also the amount of spirit that it gives. Get it as high as possible. I can still get mine quite a bit higher, but that's going to be more expensive, and I'm kind of a poor boy. So this is just what we've done, and this was about 1 div. For our other weapon, we have a Trench Timber. Plus 4 minion levels is probably going to be the best, but that's really expensive. So for now, I have a 2 socket on this, which I will probably put 2 S kappas on it to, again, increase the amount of skeletal brutes that we can have. So that's kind of a plan for when I get the money for that. But this is also really big in helping you with your damage, because more minion levels equals more life, which means more damage. Now, our helmet is really, really good. I actually found this helmet. So this is probably somewhere in the ballpark between 30 to 50 div is my guess. Maybe even more than 30, like somewhere around that ballpark. But you definitely don't need it. What I was using before I found this helmet was this one right here. As I mentioned, survivability wasn't a big issue. So, you know, you could do this and then just put more like energy shield nodes on your tree, right? So that's what I have for my helmet. Which is, again, very, very helpful with our survivability. And maybe I'll sell it at some point, who knows. But that's what we have for our character. This is definitely an outlier. Don't think that you need this helmet, guys. Don't think you need it at all. It's definitely an outlier. It just helps with survivability. And we have, of course, +2 minion levels on it. That's the main thing you need on it. For our chest armor, we have a chest with fairly decent energy shield, plus a good bit of spirit. So we get more minions. Of course, we can always get more spirit, but this is kind of like within my budget, right? Just for survivability and for spirit. We can definitely get more spirit on our necklace. Our amulet is very, very low on spirit. And again, budget constraints. If you can get like 40 spirit on this, that would be great. We're using a Venter's Gamble because it gives us spirit and also helps us a lot with survivability for our resists. I might think about getting another Venter's. We'll see. But for now, we only have one. And our second one is just here for stat requirements and resists and HP, right? So that's the second one over here. And we're using an Ingenuity. You don't need an Ingenuity at all. The only reason I'm using it is because I have one. I have one and I'm like, I kind of want to use it. You can definitely use a regular belt and just use it to round out your resistances, because that's really what our rings are for. It's just for resistances. That's all it is. And a little bit of spirit, right? So Ingenuity will definitely be a little bit better because there is extra spirit on our rings, but you can use whatever. You don't even need to use a Venter's Gamble if you don't want to. Like, you use regular rings. I just kind of use it because it seemed interesting. So we have that, our gloves, more survivability, more health, more resistances. And then for our shoes, move speed, survivability, resistances, right? You want to get maximum life on as many pieces as possible, as high as possible to give us more spirit, more energy shield. And yeah, there's really not too much complexity with the gear on this character at all. It's pretty easy to gear. It's just about getting the high enough stats to make your minions do as much damage as possible and make you as survivable as possible, right? And then also, one last thing with the gear is that we currently are holding on to these Bones of Uller and our concentrated effect, because this is our bossing setup. As I mentioned earlier, when we have more brutes, there are more explosions. More explosions equals more damage, and that's our main source of damage against bosses. So when we go against a boss, we will take off these boots, put on the Bones of Uller, because that allows us to have more minions, and we just summon the max amount of skeletal brutes, and we put this in here and replace the minion mastery there. This will end up doing more damage for us, and we take this off when we're done bossing and just replace everything. So that's kind of like the setup for bossing. Try to maximize the amount of single target damage that we have by getting more minions, and we do that by having our boots, and we'll also get more damage with concentrated effect because we don't need area of effect when we're going up against bosses. So that's the gear right now. As I mentioned again, if you can get this +4 corrupted, get this +3 corrupted, you know, just corrupting yourself plus level of minions, that's kind of like the ideal. And again, for our necklace, we do have Resource for Ally anointed into it. So yeah, that about wraps it up for this build. Again, it's very much a work in progress. This is by no means a final build guide. It's just showing you guys what I've done and also seeing what you guys are doing. And maybe we can work together to try to make this build as good as possible to, you know, clear as much content as possible in the game, because this build is by no means there yet. It's at most, like I said, maps and map bosses. So there it is. Let me know down in the comment section below what you guys think of the build, where you guys think I can improve on it. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, please hitting the sub button is going to be the best way to support the channel. as well as coming to hang out on twitch.tv/MisoXShiru. I stream there every single day, starting at like 9-10 p.m. PST. So hopefully I can see you guys there. But if not, hopefully I'll see y'all on the next video. All right, guys. Peace out. You think I can do that? That's a good joke. That's a good ass joke right there. We still have headroom for this build too, because I'd say we still have room for improvement for our spirit. But yeah, we also dropped their survivability by a little bit to try to improve our damage. I still haven't even gotten all the jewels really set up right now, because there's still some jewels that give me like minion life and AoE, which I don't know if I want to get rid of all of them, but definitely we get more mileage out of minion damage and minion cast speed and attack speed. Definitely get more mileage off of that. I don't know if we'll ever get to a point where we like my goal, right? And I don't know if it's possible. Like, I would like to get to a point where we can one-shot T15 bosses with our explosions. Right now, the last boss that we did, it was a two-shot. Last boss that we did, it was a two-shot. But yeah. And that's just hard because there's like a 4 or 5 second delay before the thing spawns after the toll. Invested too much of the build to give up anyways? Yeah. I mean, it's not that. I do like the build. I do want to take this build to like as far as I can, right? But I just don't know how far I can take it. And like, I know that this build will probably do a lot more damage if I, for example, got an Adorn, right? But that's kind of levels of money that I don't have. Now, I could maybe sell my helmet, right? And get, like, I don't know, not like a crazy Adorn, but an okay one, right? I think I can get an okay Adorn if I sold my helmet, but I don't know if I want to do that. Okay, this is a boss, right? Okay, so for boss, we still do want to do our swap, right? Increase our minions, and then we go in. Yeah, our minions are staggered right now. Okay, fine. Okay. So we do that, right? And then blows up, right? Half HP, basically. And then revive, we go there. And then boom, dead. So basically a 2 explosion cycle for these bosses, which is better than yesterday. Let's be real, right? That's way better than yesterday, but it's definitely not where it needs to be. That's definitely not where I would want it to be. What are these points rewards? What do you mean? Everyone calls me Misox right now. It is what it is. You know, it is what it is. It's, let's just say non-Asian, non-weebs, non-Asian people, right? Which I think the Path of Exile community is full of. No problem with that, but, you know, kind of the reason why there's less people who, like, know my name. I want to see greatness. So do I. So do I. And greatness might mean that we invest way too much money into this build. Yesterday it was a 1. Yesterday was 1. Today it's 2. 1 what? Time to take donations. No free handies. No free handies. I always say this. No free handies, because you never know where those handies have been. You never know where those handies have been. Now, so here's the thing, right? If there was some way that I could get the explosions to go off at a timing that I kind of like determined, that would be amazing. But you know what? At that point, we'd probably be just playing Detonate Dead. We'd probably just be playing Detonate Dead. Let's be real.